welcome to the Canine Connection podcast. Today, Lori and I are super excited to have Jenn Michaelis. Well, actually, is that even your that's not even your last name anymore because you just got married. What's your last name?
It's Jenn Stellmon.
There you go.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
So it was my idea to have her on because I feel so old. Like a long, long time ago, I was doing physical therapy on dogs, and Jenn came to me with a dog she had at the time, Terra, a Canny Corso, and so for physical therapy. So of course we talk because that's what we do at physical therapy. And then, oh, you're a trainer, I'm a trainer. Oh, and then all we do is talk training for hours on end. So one day she shows me this video of her doing a really long freestyle routine with Terra. And, she goes to show me, and in my head, I'm like, oh, freestyle. I'm like, oh my God. This dog was so happy, so animated, so bouncy pouncy through the entire thing. And it was long. And I am a trainer, so I understand, like, all we try to do, as you all know, Lori and I, is try to get this long chain of competition behaviors to be bouncy and pouncy and happy, and it's hard. And this is not a border collie. This is not a golden retriever. This is not a typical breed that does this kind of stuff. And I'm like, holy Hannah, how did you get your dog to do this? And she's like, oh, back chaining. I'm like, back what? Back chaining? And I'm like, wait, we don't do that in obedience. I don't even know what that is. So that, and then the other, at one point, so she had a different horse at the time. Sadly, this is so sad, they're all gone now, right? We're getting old. So she had a horse. So she shows me a picture of her horse, and it was a little sway back. And of course, I'm a PT, I'm a trainer. I'm like, what if we can like manipulate the horse so that we can get it to like arch its back, to strengthen its core, blah, blah, blah. So of course she goes and does it. And I remember you telling me one time, I thought this was absolutely fascinating, that you were, I don't know if you remember this, you were riding him. So you were on him and you're like, what is he doing? And you realize that he was offering his little exercise that you were doing with him to bring his back up. Do you remember that, Jenn?
I totally do.
Right? And I was like, I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. And I'm like, you should start a website on training your horse for conditioning, whatever.
I still think it's pretty cool.
Right? It's so cool. So fast forward, like you moved to the West Coast. So you're in Washington State or Oregon? Washington
I'm in
State.
Oregon now.
Oregon. Geez,
Oregon.
to me, they're like the same. What's, open your own school. You can tell everybody about, what you do now. And now you have different dogs, but you also have another horse. And I see on Facebook that you're also doing all kinds of cool stuff, clicker training the horse and rehabbing the horse. And so I'm like, we have to have her on to talk about this because, like, yeah, dog training's great, but like the whole horse thing, I think, is like, I trained a pig. Like, I trained a pig.
I remember that pig.
Do you? Oh, you met him, right?
Yeah.
So fascinating because he learns differently and, whatever. So anyway, that's my long intro on like the highlights of Jenn. And like, yeah, you just sent me some pictures from back then with me, Terra laying there. I'm doing her nails. It's so great. We just talked forever training. But so you can tell us whatever you want to tell us about yourself, your dogs, your horses, and then we'll just talk training.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I'm so lucky. I just get to sit here and like talk about my animals.
That's
Carte
right.
blanche. This is amazing.
Best part of the day.
Yeah. So I'm in Corvallis, Oregon now, and I own and operate Wonder Dogs Training, Wellness, and Enrichment. And I have currently in my household, because you don't even know, probably you haven't met any of them. I
I haven't
have,
met any of them. No, I've
yeah.
seen them on Facebook, but I haven't met them.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I have a beagle who just turned 8. I adopted her in April, so almost 3 years now. So I adopted her when she was 5. Her name's Freddie.
That's so cute.
Um, she's curled up in my lap right now. She is just an absolute love bug. And we're working on some freestyle stuff, but she's a beagle, so we're doing nose work first. She's
Of
having a
course.
great time with the nose work, of course. And my husband Adam, when he moved here from New Mexico 2 years ago, he brought his 2 dogs, and they're actually honestly how we got back together was his 2 problem dogs. He has he's got a 9-year-old Great Pyrenees and a almost 4-year-old now, super much. He is a Min Pin Border Collie and Pug mix, if you can imagine
Oh
that.
my God, I
Yeah,
cannot.
she's a lot. Um, but yeah, the dogs that you were talking about is Tara, my Cane Corso. She was my first dog, and as far as like when you consider a performance dog, and I was really lucky to have such a wonderful partner. She and I did musical freestyle pretty much from, gosh, I think she was maybe 8 months when we started doing it till she was,
Mm.
I mean, 12 and a half when she passed away, and she had just done her last show like just a couple of months before that. It was amazing. And
Wow.
yeah, so much of what we were able to do was because of everything that you taught me in terms of her physicality and her fitness and her ability to do those things for so long and enjoy what she loved was because of so much of the work that you and I did together. It just learning how to help her use her body in the best way possible.
And then you had another dog,
Oh, Ringo. Yeah, my Chinese
Ringo.
Crested.
That's right.
Yeah, he was a retired show dog just like Freddie. So I adopted him when he was 5, and I didn't really think I was going to do any sort of performance stuff with him. But I actually ended up competing in freestyle with him as well. Started competing when he was 8. So I keep reminding myself of that when I look at Freddie and go, "Oh, I haven't done anything with this dog." Um, and he went on to earn his champion title in musical freestyle as well. He was a fun dog. He taught me a lot about working with sensitive dogs under pressure. That's very, very different than Tara was always very resilient to the pressure in the ring, but he was a fun dog to work with as well.
And you had Roger was your horse, right? That you had
Roger.
then?
Yep, and I had him since I met him when I was 16, but I bought him when I turned 18. And yeah, I had him until he was 31. He passed away
Wow.
almost exactly a year ago. Um, and yeah, he was my paint horse. And I started doing that rehab with him because at about age 20, he started having lots of tripping problems and issues. And everybody in the horse world had different opinions about it, but pretty much everybody came around to saying, nah, I just shouldn't ride him anymore. Just don't ride him anymore. And he had just such a big heart and wanted to keep doing things. And so that's where I started doing my own sort of detective work and thinking, well, that can't be the end of the story. There's got to be more to it here. And so that's kind of what inspired my rehab work with him as well.
So tell us about clicker training Roger.
Mm, yeah. I started
Like,
clicker
do they
training.
learn like a horse? I mean, I'm sorry, do they learn like a dog or differently?
They're very different. I mean, there's a lot of similarities, but they're also really different. I think that with horses, I mean, they're so easily motivated by food. It's ridiculous. Like when you think about the size of the animal, right? Like Brina weighs almost 1,700 pounds. So Roger weighed 1,100 pounds, and I'm giving him like 3 little pieces. They're about the same size of dog kibble of hay pellets, and he will do repetition after repetition after repetition. So they're
Wow.
so food motivated. Um,
Oh, I didn't know that the horses were
uh-huh.
so food
I
motivated.
didn't
Yeah.
either. And
All the breeds?
What's
I
that?
would, no, I was just gonna say, I was like, I'm sitting here like imagining you in the barn doing this, and I'm like, I would think this huge animal would just push, like be pushy for the food, like just like repetition after repetition without the horse, like just give me the food, like push, you know what I mean? Like that's what I'm imagining in my head. Like just give it to me. Like how did you even get them to like just continuously, patiently do repetition after repetition?
Yeah, and I think that's a big difference with horses versus dogs. They're patient to do many repetitions, at least in my experience, but I would say they can be very pushy and very food aggressive. They frustrate really quickly.
Uh-huh.
Um, in terms of having to think about how to get their food, like problem solving. I don't really think, like if you think about a horse, right? They evolved to just drop their head and eat. Like the food is just
Mm-hmm.
all over the ground. It's just free. So I think having to problem solve and think how to earn the food, just even that act can be really frustrating, and they can get aggressive about it. Versus like a dog or any other social predator is used to problem solving to earn their food. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there's a little bit of like a, species difference there. I definitely think that always the first anybody who does clicker training with horses, first thing you always do is teach them food manners, and oftentimes from behind protected contact, just to make sure that if they are going to overwhelm you and try to mug you for the food, you can take a step back and they're behind a stall wall or
Mm-hmm.
something like that so that you can
Yeah.
be safe. Um,
Manage your safety.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean they are very large, and they
Well,
do
that's like what
really
I'm like,
get
that's what
food.
I was imagining. I'm like, huh, all right, I'm in a stall with this 1,800 pound horse that wants the freaking food in my hand. And what's stopping him from getting it opposed to like a
Yeah.
dog, you know?
Right,
Interesting.
right. I mean, with dogs, at least they're a little bit lower on the ground, right? You can kind of get away from them a
We
little
can,
easier.
yeah.
Very first thing you always do is work on teaching them that they don't get the food by reaching for it. You basically teach them leave it right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
Very first thing is it's in my hand, it's in my pocket. You only will get a click and food delivered to you if you are standing in your own space, minding your own business.
Okay. Okay.
So
Um,
do they learn that relatively quickly? Like
oh my
it's
gosh.
impulse control basically.
It
Yeah,
is.
it is. Yeah. So of course, like adding duration to it and that sort of stuff is certainly challenging. But oh well, gosh, there was a horse I was leasing when Roger's last couple of years, and I have a video of him learning this the very first time. He literally learned it in like 5 clicks, 6 clicks.
Wow.
They figure it out very quickly. I feel a lot of times I have to move my criteria much faster with my horses than I do with my dogs. I feel like I have to sit down and really have my training plan planned out because I'm going to progress through my criteria a lot faster than I expect to.
Do
They're
you
very
think
fast
that's
learners.
because the horses are more motivated? Like why do you, because I do find I'm going to go on a little tangent here
Mm,
because this is something that I've been working on a lot and really focusing on a lot with a lot of students is like they progress their dogs way too slow, like ridiculously slow. I'm like, dude,
mhm,
come
mhm.
on. Like let like the dog can go way faster than that. Like so is that just a function of motivation, like the horse learning it more quickly? Is it expectation? Is it like, or is it just a, species thing?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm honestly, I don't know if I know the answer to it. I could guess and speculate.
Yeah, go
I
ahead, speculate away.
Yeah, I'm just kind of comparing the difference between like working with Roger, who was a traditionally trained horse for a much larger portion of his life than, for example, Brina. My new horse, Brina, is 8, so she was 7 when I got her last year. Roger, I started clicker training him when he was maybe 18, 19, 20.
Mm-hmm.
And so he had, a long portion of his life being traditionally trained, which really focuses a lot on creating a very compliant, quiet horse that, if we were comparing it to dog terms, would be very much shut down. We're not expecting the horse to offer a lot of behavior or be
Mm-hmm.
extremely motivated and animated. So for him, progressing criteria was still fast, but when I compare him to Brina or my least horse Spirit, he was not as fast. With Brina, she's extremely fast. And I honestly wonder sometimes when I work with her if it's just the sheer internal motivation and freedom of actually being given choice, agency, and control. It's very reinforcing. You know, chase
Mhm.
agency and control are very huge primary reinforcers. So for her to be given the green light and say, like, yeah, give it a try, she is like, I will do this, right? So
Mm.
I I think that that is a big part of it. They are very strongly socially bonded creatures. And yeah, I mean, maybe a lot of part of it is just the food motivation. They're very easily motivated by food. So they could, I mean, they're used to eating 23 hours a day. You know, their
Wow.
horses don't need nearly as much sleep as humans and dogs do. I think they get like truly need like 5 hours of REM sleep and then they just doze any other time. So they're used to being moving on the go and eating all day. They're pretty
Mhm.
prepared for that.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I do think a lot of dogs are somewhat food motivated too. I just feel that people, they're just like one, like I had somebody that I'm not, I'm thinking of someone in my head. Don't everybody out there, don't start thinking it's you, okay? Because that's what happened last time. They were like, "Was that me?" I'm like, "No, it was not you." Um, but it's like one behavior cookie, one behavior cookie, one behavior cookie, one behavior cookie, and then it's like the
Done it four
second you
times.
don't get a give the dog a cookie, the dog starts going rah, and then she's like, "Oh, the dog," then the people are like, "Oh, the dog's upset, let me give it a cookie," and I'm like, "Oh my god, you're making it worse." Like, is that, I wonder if I do you find that, I think people just don't get, like, I don't think what you just said was so profound about giving them agency, giving them the opportunity to solve a problem, to
Mm,
make some choices, maybe make some mistakes, but then figure it out. Like, to me, that's
mm,
so reinforcing in my
Yeah.
dogs anyway. And a lot of dogs, when I get students to stop it and just stand back, like somebody said to me today, I can't say this, they're like, I did what you said. I waited. It was the longest 6 seconds of my life.
yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
6 seconds? Do you hear how funny that is that you just said that to me? 6 seconds?
But it
Like,
felt like a lifetime to
yeah, but
her.
it's 6 freaking seconds, dude. Chill out. Like, and the dog figured it out. Big surprise, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think as trainers, we have such an agenda in our brain that we're quick to want to bail the dog out. Like, God forbid they get
Totally.
frustrated, right?
Yep.
But I think it is really important to give them the opportunity to learn and to try. And yeah, they're gonna make mistakes. That's okay. That's part of the learning process,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And teaching the dog it's okay to experiment, or the learner, whatever species it is, teaching them it's okay and it's allowed to try, and they're not going to get in trouble for that. They're not going to get discouraged for that. But yeah, moving the criteria quickly enough is really
Mm-hmm.
important. Like, even then, when you were saying behavior cookie, I'm already in my head counting reps, and I'm like, oh, she got to 4. What are you going to do at 5, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm definitely a big advocate of making sure that within 5 reps, you're already evaluating and you're prepared to move your criteria if needed to. I
So
definitely feel that students, my students as well, don't move the criteria fast enough. And oftentimes at least when I catch myself in that cycle, like I do find myself in that cycle with Brina, she's a very fast learner, is because I haven't been prepared enough. I have not sat down and thought, okay, here's my training plan, and I've maybe thought, oh, maybe I'll get through step 1, step 2, but I didn't think through 3, 4, and 5. And she might
Mm-hmm.
progress through that quickly in terms of the criteria. So oftentimes it's because I'm still processing how the criteria went in the first handful of reps, and I'm still not even evaluating it well enough to know if I'm ready to go to that next criteria because I didn't sit down and write my training plan out well enough.
mm,
Mm.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah,
Right.
but
So
that,
that's the animals keeping us honest.
for sure, right. So how do you handle it when a horse gets frustrated, right? Because it's the same similar scenario to dogs, obviously a lot less life threatening. But
Exactly.
um yeah, so how do you handle it when the horse gets frustrated, right? Cuz you said they have a low frustration threshold.
Yeah, I certainly will go back to asking for simpler behaviors, so it gives me kind of a chance to reevaluate, what mistake did I make that actually caused that frustration. A really big thing that I do a lot is work with really low value reinforcers. Like if I bring out any actual horse treats, like I'm going to get so much motivation that I don't want it because then I'm going to also be building in conflict with that behavior. So I use very low value food reinforcers, literally just hay pellets. So it's the same stuff that she gets for free all the time. It would be the dog equivalent of just using kibble or Cheerios. Some dogs are very easily motivated by those. Other dogs think you're crazy if you bring that out.
Mm-hmm.
But and if she does get really frustrated, a lot of times it's just easier to take a break. I grab a huge handful of hay and I tell her all done cue and I just let her relax because the biggest frustration is coming from not getting the food quickly enough. So I can just grab a big handful of hay and just let her take a break and eat. There's nothing wrong with just reinforcing settling down at that point and take a step back, reevaluate what I'm doing. But usually it has to come down to the fact that I'm usually progressing my criteria in a way that she feels she deserves reinforcement faster. The rate of reinforcement is too low. So I try to raise my rate of reinforcement temporarily and then work on building that frustration tolerance and the impulse control to be able to handle the lower rate of reinforcement.
So with the conflict with the high value, is that like kind of similar to the horse dog gets over aroused, right? And then
1000%.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so
Yep.
then you're dealing with all the side effects of the over arousal, and then
Yep.
that's interfering with the dog's ability to learn and access the reinforcer.
Exactly. You're going to have fluency problems. You're going to have stimulus control issues. And then, with a dog, you might get like jumpy, bitey, barky stuff. With a
Yeah.
horse, you're going to get, they will take the treats rougher, just like dogs when they get over aroused. But you might also get like head tossing, pinned ears. You might get defensive behavior in terms of the food as well. So, um, being a little bit sharky or reaching for the food or just being like I've had Brina get real excited and even just almost like literally turn her butt to kick me. Not to truly
Mm-hmm.
kick me, but she's like, I'm doing a trot and I wanted a click and now I'm frustrated. So I'm gonna pin my ears and toss my head and maybe shift my hip towards you a little bit because I'm mad,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, I hear you, I see you. That was my mistake.
Wow. That's
I
interesting.
always say people should I will always say people should have to train Zaina because she will hold you accountable. She will let you know when you're messing up. Like she will no
Mhm.
holds barred. She will be like, "Hey, idiot, what are you doing?" So now I think everyone instead of training Zaina, they should train a horse because it's going to
Yeah, right?
force you to get your act together or else it ain't gonna be pretty.
Yeah, it's definitely because they don't live in the household with us all the time. They're very motivated to interact with us when we come out. They're very sensitive to our energy and our body postures. You definitely wouldn't get away with nearly as much with a horse as you do with dogs.
Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah. They're very fun. And it's very interesting to see how how quickly they generalize. That's one thing that I really noticed a difference. Like you were saying, Petra, that I told you, I had taught Roger just to offer his head and put his head down at walk and at trot while he was on the ground on the lunge line. And doing that, we were doing that to get him to lift his abdominals and
Mhm.
use his back properly. And I took him out for a trail ride. I don't know, it probably was like weeks later. And I was like, why is he sniffing the ground? Like, we're going out for a ride and he keeps sniffing the ground. What are you doing? And he was like, this is what I've been getting clicks and treats for. Look, I can do it. And I was like, I have never
That
once
is
cued this
hilarious.
from in the saddle. Yeah, it's bizarre. And Brina will do the same thing. I taught one of the rehab exercises I'm working on is this might be hard to describe on a podcast, but if you can imagine a cavaletti pole, instead of walking across it perpendicularly, she's actually standing with it between her front feet and her back feet. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we're keeping the front feet stationary. We're taking side steps left and right with her back feet.
Mm.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
when I was riding her last month, I kind of was giving her a loose rein and just giving her a chance to stretch and relax. And she said, "Oh, you're not giving me any cues? I'm going to mosey to the center of the arena over here." She literally straddled the cavaletti and started stepping back and forth with it with her
Oh
back legs.
my
Yeah,
God.
I
Wow. Wow.
never cued that from the saddle before, ever. Only ever cued it on the ground standing in front of her.
So you think that generalization is just motivation, or it's just they're wired differently?
Mm, maybe as a prey animal, they're wired differently.
Yeah.
You know, they're so they're very socially um, sensitive in terms of if she freezes and looks at something in the distance. If I try to be like, "Oh yeah, it's totally fine," she's like, "You're psycho, it's not fine." So I have to stop
Mm.
and acknowledge it too. "Oh yeah, I see that bicyclist, no big deal," and then we can go right back to work. Sometimes I wonder if it's a difference between prey versus predator, but I've only really just experimented and played with my own dogs. I would not consider myself a horse clicker training expert. So I can
Yeah,
spec.
but we're just talking, right? In theory, and
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, none of us are experts at anything. Trust me, I'm not an expert on anything. So it's no, it's fascinating. Like, because I it always makes me think, right? Because I mean, dogs, I think, are not good generalizers at
Right,
all.
right.
Agree.
No, you have to take so many steps to do
Oh my
that.
God.
And
And
show them so, and you got to show them 80 different pictures of it, you know?
yes.
Yes. Yeah, I had the same thing happen with Roger when I was doing nose work with him. I would have a terrible nose work session trying to introduce corners or something like that. And I'd go home and I'd just pick it apart in my head and be like, "All right, here's my plan going forward." Then I'd come back and do it again. And he'd be like, "Yeah, corners, got it, Mom. I've been thinking about it. It's fine." And I'd be like,
Mm.
"What? What? I didn't do anything. How did you generalize this?" It's just so
Wow.
fascinating.
Wow. That's
Yeah, that is
amazing.
so interesting. I mean, I
Mhm.
do think I mean, the generalization thing aside, another point that you just made, which I do think is big, because I think a lot of times people just flood their dogs with too much information.
Mm,
And that whole like just let it sit. Like I've had sessions where my
mhm.
dog's not getting it or did it wrong. And I was like, I don't even know how to fix this. I'm like, you know what? Just forget it.
Yeah.
Come back the next day and he's like Zesty's really late, like good at that, and then he's like, oh yeah, I got it. I'm like, oh, all right.
Yeah.
And people, I feel like they're so controlling.
Mm.
Like their dog makes a mistake, they freak out, or the dog doesn't get it. They're trying so hard, they're doing 8,000 reps, and they get up the next day, they do it again. And I'm like, holy cow, like just I have a rule of threes. They're not allowed to do more than three correct reps in a row. At that point you need to either raise criteria or go do something
Mhm.
else, because I
Mhm.
had to do something, that I had to draw the line. Right.
Mhm.
And I'm like, and I'm also like one and done. Like when if Zaina does something perfectly, I will never do it again, ever, like that day, that session, because
Mm.
I will guarantee you the odds are very high if I do it again, it won't be perfect. So,
Oh, it's
like,
so interesting.
she does it perfectly, she'll, and then I move on to the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. And sometimes she does like four or five things once. We're done. She's done. We're done.
Mm.
Goodbye. Off with
Uh-huh.
you. You're done.
Yep. Yep. Ringo was exactly the same way. You got to do it right, and then quit. Tara was the exact opposite. That was the really interesting thing working with her.
Hmm.
Is if I quit, it actually was really punishing for her. She did not want to quit. So she really taught me how to keep raising my criteria. And I honestly think that that's what made it so easy for me to teach her to do so much duration and such long behavior chains with her.
But that's so interesting because she's not a breed that you would ever imagine.
That
I think a lot
motivates.
that it had to have, your training had to have a huge impact, because I'm sorry, that is not a breed that like is super social. Like, let's just be real, people. I
Hmm.
mean, come on.
Yeah,
Like, it is
for
what it
real.
is, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not a breed that's typically motivated to do anything other than guard, because that's what it was bred
Hmm.
for,
Yep.
right? Maybe bite, that would be reinforcing.
Mhm.
Um, and so when you have, this is what I found so fascinating, especially when I watched that video, is that like it is what it is. And I'm like, how did you get this dog to do that? So and no, but it
It's
had to
true.
have to do with how you trained her. Oh, I lost her.
Oh.
So we were talking about Tara. Like, what did you do to you? Obviously, your training had to have a big impact on her, like just wanting to work, wanting to do reps, wanting to keep,
Yeah, she
loving
definitely
to
had
work.
so much motivation, internal motivation. Yeah, I was trying to think about that. Sometimes when you're such in the thick of it, you don't realize exactly how you're doing it. But,
Mm-hmm.
I think I didn't intend for her to be a performance dog, honestly. I just got her as a pet. But um I when I was raising her, I mean, I did clicker training since day one. I got her very young. She was like 7 weeks old when she came home. So she definitely learned from early on how to do everything in terms of just easy clicker training and that sort of stuff. But really, I think what it came down to was building a lot of impulse control, a lot of frustration tolerance that really allowed me to add duration and create those really long behavior chains without getting all the other side effects and the fallout that usually comes with that. Because I really wanted to build a lot of trust and a lot of confidence in her that no matter what, she was going to get reinforced and it was going to be worth it. I think that's the big thing is that our dogs start to lose confidence in us that it's going to be worth it. It's a huge amount of work. I mean, they're not done. They know when we walk into a ring and it's an actual show, like they know there's not going to be actual tangible reinforcement, right? Like the
Mm-hmm.
food
Right.
or the
Yeah.
play.
Yeah.
And very oftentimes that's when we see like, that lackluster performance or we see latency problems where they just don't respond as quickly. And I really wanted to build trust and confidence in her, that it's always going to be worth it. And really, what that comes down to is your classical conditioning, right? That it's not about the operant conditioning of each individual behavior. I think it's about the classical conditioning of the whole entire picture to them, of doing a chain of behaviors, right? That they know that picture means they're going to get reinforcement. Um, I
Hmm.
always tell my students to make sure that you don't just think about giving them a reward. If you're asking for a big chain of behaviors, think about making a reward event that the
Yeah.
that the
Mhm.
quality and the quantity of the reinforcer. Good girlfriend. She hears those dogs. Um, is the quality and the quantity of your reinforcer has to be greater than the quality and the quantity of whatever you just asked them to do.
Yeah.
Otherwise they're going to do a cost benefit analysis and they're going to realize it's not worth it.
Right.
Well,
Yeah, that's so true.
being really really specific in that regard of terms of like how long was it a minute's worth of work? You better play tug for at least a minute, plus treats, just being really really clear for the handlers so that they've got something concrete to actually do. I think that's really important.
How did you build frustration tolerance?
um I think I was so worried in terms of having a pet. I was so worried about a dog that was going to, whine in her crate or some bark out of excitement in the car because Corsos are well known for their high arousal issues.
Hmm.
So I really worked a lot in terms of her working on things like just basic stuff like stays and weights, but adding insane levels of distractions, remote control toys, throwing her toys and calling leave it or wait, to build the impulse control. The frustration tolerance, I really did a lot with food puzzle toys. I don't know if you use a lot of food puzzle toys with your dogs in terms of
I
that.
don't, because my dogs literally destroy them. Like their way to solve the puzzle is
Eat
destroy the toy, like to get at the food. Like that, they're so
Mhm.
unsophisticated. Like they're just, and then if
Yeah,
they
Freddie
figure
is
it
very
out,
much in that way as well. I've been
like I
slowly
had
working on
one,
it.
yeah, there was one, it was like a bubble gum machine, and it's like cookie, cookie. It's like hit it, hit it, hit it, hit it, like till the machine practically explodes, right? Like they're field labs, like
Yeah.
they just don't do.
They have simpler ways of getting to it.
Puzzles. So you said you used puzzles a lot. Asked me if I use puzzles. I told you that using a puzzle with a field lab is
They were
absolutely
nuts.
disastrous and it does not
Yeah.
work. But
Yeah.
so the puzzle, I see what you're saying, because like she has to work through
That
finding
frustration.
it.
Mm-hmm.
She has to work through
Yeah.
solving the puzzle to get the reinforcer.
Yeah.
And if she gets frustrated though, do you help her solve the puzzle, or are you just like, it's okay, honey, keep working?
I give her an easier puzzle.
Mm,
So I think starting with an easier puzzle, like once you notice, like, oh, we're going to vocalizing or destruction as our strategy, right? It means you've just picked a too challenging puzzle. Or you can choose to reinforce for effort that isn't actually getting the food out right away, like so that they don't switch strategies, right? Because switching strategies to destruction or just like vocalizing is like Freddie would work on a Kong while also whining um, because she's frustrated, right? So getting reinforcement more frequently teaches them that they can work through it and eventually get it. So I've done that with a lot of clients' dogs where they're playing with a toy, and right as we kind of see that frustration starting to bubble up, you just kind of sneakily drop a little piece of food down there so they think it
mm.
came out of the toy, right? So you're actually reinforcing the persistence and the resilience without going to that next level of frustration.
Yeah, because
Balance.
I was just saying to Lori when we got disconnected, like it's such a conundrum because there's such a fine line, right? Because
Oh
what
yeah.
people tend to do is their dog, the second their dog gets frustrated, they throw a cookie at it. So that
Hmm.
decreases their frustration tolerance, right? Because as soon as the dog gets frustrated, they're like, here's a cookie, here's another cookie. So it's like where, I think I find people tend to do that way more than push the dog past the point, where they're so frustrated that you went too far. But there's
Yeah.
that fine line where they need to push and you can't just
Mhm.
run and grab, oh God, here,
Here's a
but
Right.
treat,
not
right?
so far to where the dog's like, I give up or I'm out.
Yeah.
And different dogs have different
Threshold.
tolerances for frustration
Mhm.
naturally.
Yeah, I think you can shape the frustration in the same way that you shape an actual action, though, right? So knowing that in sometimes it is a good idea to just give that treat at that moment when the dog is frustrated, but that can't always be the answer because then you're stuck at that level of criteria in terms of frustration, right? So knowing where you made the mistake, making a slight adjustment to your criteria so the dog can accomplish maybe an approximation of your goal but with less frustration, that would be reinforceable, right? And so what you're really working on is two different criteria. You're working on the goal behavior but also imagining that the emotion that comes along with it is part of your criteria. So we always have to reduce your criteria anytime you're adding a layer to something, and frustration is a layer.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's so, yeah. I always try, like, I'm always thinking, like, even when I have a puppy, right? Like, so I'm training a puppy and I can see it's starting to get either a little glazed or it's starting to
Mm-hmm.
get a little, and I'm like, all right, just then my tendency is I'm like, give me just a little bit more. And then I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, yes. And then we're done. Right? So
Yeah.
that I'm always trying to push like a little
Yeah.
bit and a little more and a little more and a little more into that right? So that over time it gets bigger and
Be-
bigger so that
Yeah.
they can do more work and they can tolerate more frustration, or they
Yeah. They're
don't get
able to think.
frustrated. Yeah.
Yeah, they're able to think through that level of adrenaline, right? And that's, I mean, that's exactly essentially what I'm also saying. I think that with less experienced handlers, knowing where that line is and knowing when to push and knowing when to drop, I mean, those are the chops, right? That's the mechanics and the training judgment calls that we all have to make all the time with different learners, different same learner on different days. I mean, those are the tough calls that we have to make all the time, knowing when to push and when not to.
Yeah, going back to when you were just talking about when, like, so the dog's trying to solve the puzzle, and you can start to see some frustration bubbling up. So you sort of just, secretly sneak a cookie in to make the
Yeah.
dog think that they've got some success. I
Uh-huh.
like that. I'm just sitting here thinking about that. Like, you're almost when it gets hard and we want you to keep pushing, but we're also wanting to pair it with the right emotional state.
Yeah.
So that's kind of
Right.
where I'm thinking about that. Like, I like that. I like that.
Yeah, so that's a moment where, kind of like we would with a dog who is fearful, we are willing to give you a treat while you're fearful, right? And people used to be worried, oh, that reinforces the fear. It's the same thing with frustration. I'm willing to give you a treat to help you work through this emotional thing, and it's not reinforcing the frustration, even though it kind of feels like it is. Does that make sense?
It does make sense because
Yeah.
I'm like envisioning this, and I'm like, if I see frustration bubbling, is my first instinct to go put a cookie in it, like put a cookie on
Yeah.
it. And it's
Right.
not. But
Right.
now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, huh, I kind
Yeah.
of like this. I'm looking at this differently. That's
Because
interesting.
you can always go back and shape the actual action, right? Like, you're like, oh, well, if I give him a treat, then he's going to think I want him to do A instead of B. But
Right,
really, you
right,
can
right.
always go back and shape the actual action the way that you want it to be, once you've dealt with the frustration. And it's going to look even better by that point. It's the other strategy that I use a lot is kind of using like a high low reinforcer in that moment. I'll give the dog a treat when they get frustrated, but maybe it's just a lower value treat, and it's again just addressing the frustration. So maybe I'm over
And
here clicking.
you're not like marking,
Nope.
right? Like, you're not really
Nope.
marking. So it's not like you're
Exactly.
isolating like a moment in time, or you know what I mean? That's interesting.
Exactly, right? So I would click and give high value, or maybe just give him, just literally throw him a bone, right? Like, just give him a low value thing to help deal with the frustration. Give him a couple low value things to deal with the frustration. It's fine, because the frustration is what's clouding the ability to think clearly. And when we address that, you can come back and shape the behavior that you wanted much, much easier.
I think it's
Right.
kind of like the concept of what we do. So, for example, like if I'm adding challenges, right? Like
Yeah.
proofing is the way we say to something, and my dog maybe does not the perfect behavior, but he's trying and he's trying to push through the challenge. I will a lot of times say yes, even
Exactly.
though let's
It's
say he
not meeting
fumbled
other
the
criteria.
dumbbell, but I'm like, I don't care that he fumbled it because he made the choice to pick through and push through and get it in spite of the crazy toy spinning
Mhm.
around the dumbbell, right? And
Yeah.
then people
Yeah.
freak out and they're like, but you marked a bad pickup. I'm like, no, I marked the effort to
Yes.
push
Pushing.
through
Mhm.
and
Ah,
do the task. And then not a 100% of the time I repeat the task, the dog does not fumble the dumbbell, right? Because the fumble was a function of hit something else, which is the dog going, oh God, oh God, all right, what do I do? Oh, okay.
yep.
I pick up the toy. I pick up the dumbbell in spite of the toy, right? Right,
Mhm.
buddy. And
Mhm.
the actual behavior of picking up the dumbbell is like secondary, and it gets resolved once you resolve the other piece.
1000%. When we think about generalizing or proofing, we tend to think of the three Ds only, right? Like duration, distance, and distractions. But that is completely ignoring all the other emotional states that your dog could be experiencing in that moment, right? Is it
Mm-hmm.
frustration? Is it a fear? Is it pressure from the handler? They're feeling a little bit stressed about that. Stress of travel when you're competing. You have to build the resiliency to all of those things and their emotional health into all of that. I think that that is a big piece of being able to get really long chains, is that you're also addressing the emotional health of your dog, that they're feeling really confident and trusting in you, and that they can do all of these additional behaviors because you've trained the distance, duration, and distractions, but you also worked through the adrenaline, the arousal, the frustration tolerance, the impulse control. That stuff is more like the classical conditioning that comes along when we're teaching all of these specific skills through operant conditioning.
Hmm.
I think that's what's so hard for people. Like, I did a seminar this weekend. Well, I talk about it does all the time anyway. It's like there's so many things happening simultaneously, right? That people tend to be very focused on teaching the behavior.
Yep, the
And then
operant stuff.
yeah, and then it's really hard for them to literally see anything else.
You're right.
Hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, we're not really taught to pay attention to that. The body language and the emotions. For so long, the culture of dogs was that they don't have emotions, right? And now we're realizing, like, oh, they're actually extremely emotionally complex, and that stuff matters. It's coming along for the ride, whether you want it to or not.
True. Facts.
I always tell my freestyle students, like, we don't make the rules of learning, like, we have to live by them. We don't get to make the rules. Like, the your dog is going to tell you what they need in that moment, and you don't get to change the rules, but you can use them to make your training choices.
Mm-hmm.
I know, but it's such a challenge to
It's
get
hard.
people, like, sometimes, like, I've seen people where they miss something so obvious, right? And
Mhm.
it's happening literally, I'm not even talking at a distance, like right there in front of their face. And I'll go, right now, did you just see that? See what? And I'm like, oh my
Mhm.
God.
Yeah.
And it's
We
because
are
the
certainly
dog,
not, like, as humans, like, we are not aware of our bodies nearly as much as dogs are.
no.
We don't
But
we don't know what we're doing. We just do it.
But we're also not good listeners, right?
Nope.
Like,
And
we're not good
observation, yeah.
listeners to other humans, right? Like, case in point, go out
Yeah.
to dinner. Is anyone listening to anyone? No, they're all sitting there on their phones, right? Like, you're not learning to actually listen. And then sometimes you're talking and then the person like talks over you or something, right? So all those
Mhm.
things are like, you need to hone your skill of actually listening, like
Yeah.
listening and taking in objectively what's in front of you.
Hmm. And I think that is what makes a really, really good trainers, is being really open to the honest feedback your dog gives you, right? And being able to understand that. I will throw myself under the bus. Like, when Tara passed away and Ringo passed away, like, I went down this real deep grief rabbit hole. It was really hard. And I'm still kind of finding myself in that terms, and losing Roger was really hard. I find myself doing bad training with Freddie or with Brina because I can't get out of my head. I have a level of busyness or anxiety in my head that I didn't have before. And I can feel it when I get in the zone, and I'm like, oh, there's my old self. I can feel it when you can really truly, like, see those things and feel it and be open to the feedback and make those judgment and training calls in the moment and on the fly. But it takes a level of presence that our
Oh my
our
gosh.
life and culture just doesn't encourage us to be in anymore.
Well, that we talk about that all the time. Like, that's like the
Mhm.
hardest piece, is
It's so
actually
hard.
being so in the moment and focused and like
Mhm.
completely dialed in. So not
Mhm.
you're not hearing, seeing,
Yeah.
feeling
Yeah.
anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
way harder for me to get into that headspace than it used to be. And I think that that's especially when you're a student, like when you're a student, somebody else is talking to you while you're working your dog. That's really hard. I find the best thing for me when I'm working with Brina or with Freddie is I always film myself when I'm training, because then I can look back and keep myself honest. That's how I
Mhm.
get the most benefit from it, is filming myself and seeing how the animal is reacting to me, and then realizing, oh, there was that moment, I missed that right there. Because even if I'm not in my best headspace during that training station session, when I look back at it and I can see it visually, it it kind of burns itself a little bit more into my muscle memory, and I won't make that mistake again
Right. Right.
because I
We
see.
talk. Yeah, we talk about video all the time. I also think, like, on some level, like, our first few dogs were kind of naive. Like, it's a conundrum because, on the one hand, we don't know anything, so we make those mistakes. But on the other hand, we don't know anything. So, like, everything is magical, right? Like, my
Yeah.
dog picked up the dumbbell. Like, I literally, to this day, can remember how excited I was when I got my first set of articles. Like, I was like, I am entering the world of utility. Like, I am a big shot. Like, it
Oh.
was so exciting. And then you have a few dogs, you get to a certain level with them, and it is incredibly challenging to be so aware that you must now not place any of those judgment, any of that onto your next animals. Like, I think in an
Mhm.
odd way, I was very lucky because I had Tyler early, but
Yeah.
I just knew he was special. I also was aware enough that I knew that the next dog after him, that if I did not get my act together, it was going to be a disaster because no dog was ever possibly going to live up to that
Mhm.
animal. Like, it was impossible.
Mhm.
So I did a lot of, like, mental prep work before and while I had the next more than one dog,
Mhm.
because I was like, because I could feel it. Like, I could
Yeah.
feel how that could potentially be a really big problem. And I see that with a lot of students who have had a dog that they've reached a certain level with, and now they have expectations, and it can get really messy.
Yeah, you're overthinking everything. You're really thinking, you're realizing how much work it was the first time around. And every dog is so different. You can't do it exactly the same. Like
Mhm.
even when I did it with Ringo, he was so different than Tara, that I had to completely rethink everything again. And working with Freddie is also very, very different. They're all so different. And so you really have to be present and not overthink things, but also be thinking them enough, right? That you're shaping your criteria and keeping all of those emotions in check. It's a lot. It's not easy.
It's, well, we always say, right, Lori?
Oh,
We
yes.
always say it's so hard. Dog
Yeah.
training is so
Yeah.
Hard.
hard.
What is that
It's so
that Bob Bailey quote, right? Like training is simple but never easy.
it's never easy. It's
Yeah.
so hard.
Hmm.
Yeah, but, like, see, for me, and this is what I tell people, like, well, I do a couple things that help me. I don't know if they would help anyone else, right? Like, one thing I do is, because I've done this with things in my life where I, like, because emotions never serve us, right? They always get in the way. So,
Hmm.
like, I separate myself. So, like, if a friend calls me up and she's like, drama, 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 what do I do? And I go, well, if this was happening to me, what would you say? and they know the answer immediately because they have now
Mhm.
separated themselves from the
Mhm.
emotion, right?
Mhm.
So I'll do that with training. I'll be like, okay, I'm frustrated with it. Okay, wait a minute. If this was my student's dog and this was happening, what would
What
I
would I
tell
do?
them? And I'm like, oh, duh. Like, I know the answer. Like, what am I doing? Like, you know, you know
Yeah.
that. So I'll tell people do that. I also, like, I have my students, like, what would Petra say? So I'm like, I don't care if what you guess is completely wrong. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to judge you, but send, type up your problem, right? Because I do online teaching. So type up your problem, give me your video submission, and give me a solution. Doesn't matter. Could be a shot in the dark. Does not matter. Just something. So they start
Um,
thinking about what
mhm.
would, not what would they say, what would I say, and that
Mhm.
like gives them that degree weird separation
Separation.
thing,
Yeah.
Right.
and they'll able to do it, and literally in a few weeks they're starting to get it right.
Yeah. That's
Right.
a great way of thinking about it.
And then the other thing I do is I'm like, just pretend you're a detective, right? Gather data.
Mhm.
Like they're just data points. It's just information, right? So
Yeah.
here's the data. The data is, in these circumstances this happened, in this circumstance that happened. What is the data? What are the possibilities of what's different or whatever? Like look at it just as raw data, and that's it, nothing else, right? Like stop with the emotional stuff because it never helps.
Mhm.
Never,
Yeah.
never
Um,
helps.
They can only really dogs can only really, any learner, right? They can do is try with the information that they have, right? So, yeah, the just going with what the behavior that you see, right, is the best way to troubleshoot things sometimes.
Yeah.
So this is like my brain just went like completely shooting off and a completely off on a tangent. Like I wonder why, do you think people that do like high end competitive dressage do any form of like clicker training? Cuz I almost feel like
Mm.
if like the horse is so highly motivated for food and it
Mm.
generalizes so well, like you could teach it things like lunging, right?
Oh,
And then
yeah.
like
That's what I did with
carry,
Roger.
I
um,
know.
yeah, I mean, but
You
99.
need to start like some like an online, you need to start
You
something with
do.
this. I would told you that all the way back
I
then,
know.
and I'm still going to say it because
You're right.
It's
You're
amazing.
totally right. I mean, yeah, and so 99% of the horses out there are still very much traditionally trained.
yes.
Positive reinforcement is progressing for horses, even a lot more so than, 10 years ago when you and I were hanging out, but it's it's still very much fringe, still very, very much where dogs were like 75 years ago. Um, but I do think it's very, very possible. I mean, I the stuff that I worked with Roger, I he was traditionally trained, so I would call him like a crossover horse, crossing over into positive reinforcement. Um, but it was so amazing to see how much work he was willing to do when he was internally motivated to earn food rewards versus running away from force or fear, right? Like, because when we do
Mhm.
lunging with a horse, you are essentially holding their head with a line, and then you use a whip behind them, and they run
Mhm.
forward. They end up running in a circle because you're holding onto their head, right?
Mhm.
And so the reason they're moving forward is to get away from something icky, and and
Mhm.
that's very, very different than choosing to move forward because you want to, or even if the motivator is food or praise or scratches. The expression of behavior that I got from him was so different. He used his body joyfully, he was lofty. He would even even out in the field, it was almost like he would offer behaviors in the same way that a joyful dog is like, look, I'm happy, I'm spinning for you, right? It's kind
Mm-hmm.
of the same thing for him out there in the field. He'd be like, look at me with my big lofty canter, and now I'm lifting my head and arching my neck. Aren't I sexy, right? And he would offer those things just for funsies because he knew that it was potentially going to get reinforced. And that's coming from a way different place than being moving forward because you're getting away from something yucky. I think that there's so much untapped potential in positive reinforcement with horses. It's to me, it's mind-boggling how, like, what we could potentially do. Um,
Yeah, I agree. And I would love to see like if more people were doing that because I agree because like
Mhm.
it just their whole emotional state is different. I'm kind of obsessed with this one horse. I'm so obsessed with it. I might name my puppy it.
Ah,
Do you ever watch like dressage videos online? Like you should
yeah,
look up Zonic Plus. Have you seen that horse?
I
It's a
haven't.
Oh my God, it's a young black stallion, and this guy does this really high end, like world class dressage with this horse, and
Ooh.
it's young. It's like 8. They've been doing
Mhm.
phenomenal, and he talks about how he cares about the horse being happy and comfortable. And I'm not saying he's clicker training, but
Mhm.
and supple. And you when watching the horse, like I've sometimes watched like he does freestyle dressage, so I've
Yeah.
watched some of his runs like multiple times because they give me so much joy because it's so beautiful. This horse, like you could tell it's like
Freedom.
light,
Yeah.
and so
So
clearly,
cool.
his training method, who knows, maybe I'm dead wrong and he beats the heck out of it and whatever, but I don't think so
I
because it
doubt it. I
doesn't
doubt
look
it.
Doubtful.
like it.
No, no, yeah. And a lot of what I did with Tara was dressage based, I mean, she was such a big dog, that I almost had to teach her dressage level stuff in order for her to be able to do freestyle, right? Like for such a
Physically.
big dog, physically, yeah.
Hmm.
So you can, I mean, I clicker trained all of that with Tara, extension and collection of her trot, doing side passes, all of that sort of stuff. You can do it with a dog, you can do it with a horse. I'm really excited to try things with Brina because, starting with a younger horse that doesn't have, like, Roger had a lot of physical limitations and as
Hmm.
he got older. So for her, she has some physical limitations. We're doing some rehab work with her, but I feel very much like I'm doing with her what I did with Roger. Everybody with Roger was like, "Oh, you should just stop riding him," and I rode him until he was 30. We continued to ride because I was able to communicate with him in a different ways with the clicker training. So I was able to teach him things to keep him safe, but also um, getting him to be self motivated to carry himself properly and stay strong. I'm doing very similar things with Brina. She basically has a career ending injury, and I'm already back riding her and I'm working on building up her motivation and her strength, and I'm so excited to see what I can unveil in there, right? Like that beautiful movement and the expression of movement, when they're joyful. Yeah, I'm just so excited to kind of find that level with her. Like with Roger, I would, when I couldn't ride anymore, we would go over to hiking trails and we would do just walks, and I would do, like walk, trot, and canter, just running around in the field with him, literally like an off leash dog. And so I'm really excited to be able to get to that level with Brina where she finds it fun and joyful to express herself that way instead of running away from something.
You know how
Um,
Bob Bailey has chicken camps? You
yeah.
should get like a bunch of people to volunteer their horses because I would go and have horse training camps.
Oh, let's do it. That would be so exciting. I would
Would
totally
with
do
love.
that.
right? Because I find that when you train a different species, like I
Mhm.
think too for a lot of people, like again, now it takes some pressure off, right? Because now it's not your dog, and you don't have this goal, and it's not life or death, because we all know if your dog doesn't do what you want, it's the end of the world. And but you also can't just do your like click treat because it's not going to work, right? Because the animal is going to learn differently, like you kind of just explained, like how the horse learns differently. Just like when I trained Q the pig, like we had to figure out, wait, how does he actually learn? Because he learned differently. We still use a clicker, but he learned differently. And so they have to like step outside that. And then I think they really do have to utilize that observation piece, right? Because you got to figure it out.
Yep, yep. The horses are not going to fill in the blanks for you like dogs will.
There you go. See, I'm giving you all these ideas.
We'll have horse camp. You guys can come.
Horse camp,
I
the
would love
first
that.
annual horse camp.
Let's
That's
And
do it.
then
Let's do it.
do it.
then you're gonna start training. I was telling Lori like where I just started doing nose work with my dogs, and
Yes.
the place where she has where I go for lessons, the on the property, the people that own the property, they have chickens. Day one, I
Ooh.
show up there, there's snow on the ground, and I'm like, chickens? Will they let us use the chickens? Can we train the chickens? I'm like,
Uh-huh.
and she looks at me like, I think they would. So
Do
I'm
it.
waiting for the snow to melt, and then I'm going to be like, all right, let's talk to the owners because we got to have our own little chicken camp.
That would be
Ah.
hilarious. That would be hilarious.
Well, I
Have you
certainly know
ever,
enough horses around here. We could certainly do that.
right? Wouldn't that be a cool
Mm-hmm.
thing?
That'd be
And
really.
and I can't imagine, like, liability aside, if you own a horse, right? Like, and someone could teach your horse something functional,
Hmm.
you
Yeah,
should be like, oh, I don't know how open-minded horse people are. I mean, like, I
I
know with
know.
me, anything training, anything, you want to show me something, here's my dog, show me something. Like, I can't get enough
Yeah.
of training.
I'll bet we would get plenty of volunteers. Plenty of volunteers. I
Oh
mean,
god.
honestly, there's so many things that with Roger and with Brina both, I think you'd get plenty of volunteers because I don't I think that there are, just like with dogs, there are certain personalities that are going to respond well to traditional methods, right? But there's also certain personalities that are not going to respond well to traditional methods. And Roger and Brina, especially with Roger, like I can't tell you, as a young teenager, there's so many walls I hit with him using traditional methods where we would go 10 rounds and still, like, the horse wins because traditional methods can fail sometimes with certain personalities. Like, he was very opinionated, and if I was going to pick a fight with him, I ate the dirt. Like, I would fall
Mm.
off, get bucked off. And so there were certain things that I just learned to like live with, right? Like, this is a quirk. He's going to be excited out on trail rides and he can't walk home. He's too excited. He's just going to jig on the way home. Or he's just going to always be wiggly when I give him a bath. This is just something I have to live with because whips and yanking on his face and saying whoa and trying to like shove him against a wall, that's just, it's not going to work to get him to hold still. It's just, bare minimum, I might just like have a really angsty horse bath. But with clicker training, I was able to solve those problems in like 1 or 2 sessions. It was
Mm.
ridiculous. It was like all I had to do, I solved the jigging thing on trail rides with 1 session. Literally all I did was I brought my clicker and I brought my treats, and if he even slowed down in his trotting home, I would click and treat him. I just captured it. And then he was like, oh, you want me to go slower? Well, how about a walk? I'm like, yeah, click treat. Right. And he's like, oh, you want me to walk? Click treat. And that's all I had to do was just capture him going slightly slower than usual. And he was way more motivated for the treats than he was to get home to the barn. It was so easy. And the same thing with the bath. All I had to do was break it down like I would any old training thing. Here's a little bit of water with the hose. Click treat for your feet being still. Oh, it's splashing over here to the side. Click treat for your feet being still. Oh, it's touching your hoof now. Click treat for your feet being still. And then poof, problem solved as I built it up from there. It was so much easier than just saying like, whoa, 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 a million times and yanking on his halter. And, that's all that traditional training would give you, or put the water on him until he finally gives up and stands there. But that was never going to work with his personality. Flooding did not work with him. So I think that there's plenty of horses out there who potentially have realized that they're willing to put up the fight against the traditional training, and it doesn't necessarily work for them. Or maybe you get the behavior, but then you get all this icky, yucky emotional stuff that comes along with it. I think we'd probably have tons of people who would be like, yeah, if you want to try and fix this problem with clicker training, here.
Right.
Yeah. Well, the other
Um,
thing though that you're pointing out that is really important that you're just kind of like glossing over because you're a clicker trainer, you're a shaper, right? Basically
yeah,
shaping. Like
yeah,
I struggle with getting my students to understand shaping because they want to
mm,
go from like, okay, my dog just learned how to rotate their butt to the right. Now it should find front perfectly. Dude,
Yeah.
no,
mhm.
like they
Baby steps.
struggle with approximation. And you just gave like a bunch of perfect examples of how you did not go from a trot to a walk, how you went a little slower and a little so, and then you got to walk, or how you didn't go from like I'm hosing you full on to, I'm
Right.
not hosing you to I'm hosing you full on, like
Hmm.
that,
Baby
doing
steps.
those baby steps, like, and how
Hmm.
tiny can you break something down? I think
Yeah,
the ultimate irony is the reason people don't break it down is because subconsciously they want to get there faster. And I'm
yeah,
always like, let me tell you, the faster way to get there is to break it into tiny pieces. You get there
yep.
way faster.
Way faster.
Yeah.
Yeah, breaking it down, and you're going to get the emotional piece that you want to go with it as well,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? That's really really important as well, because you could get there faster, sloppier, but with more frustration and stuff you're going to have to go back and try to clean up later, and then that's way harder to clean up than just doing it slow but fast, by teeny baby steps from the beginning.
Yeah. Definitely. And getting the right emotional piece in there.
Right, emotional piece going on with it. That's a big thing that I'm working on with Brina a lot, because she is also traditional trained, right? 99% of horses are. She was an interesting mix when I first bought her. She was a little shut down. She's this giant horse, and when I test rode her a couple of times, I remember telling the owner, I feel like there's a big engine in there, but she's not willing to give it to me. It was like I had to squeeze so hard and really get after her to try and get her to even just give me anything more than like a pokey little jog. And and uh and there's I mean, she was like this big couch potato, because she's part draft horse. She's a big beast. So she was a little shut down, but then when you would get her to do things, it was with pinned ears and threatening to bite and like, oh, I'll do the thing, but you know how I feel about it. And so I've really been doing lots of just teeny baby steps. Like, it's real interesting once I've slowed down and kind of listened to how she feels about things. She's got had a weird thing about stepping up on a stool next to her that got lots of pinned ears and bite threats. And anything you throw over her back, like a saddle pad or a saddle or, God forbid, a blanket. She hates blankets. So I've done a lot of start buttons and just lots of just reinforcements for teeny baby steps. Like, I walked next to the stool. Oh, I put my foot on the stool, but I didn't even put my weight on it. And reinforcing not just the calmness, but calmness, holding still, and happy face, right? Like ears
Mm-hmm.
forward, head forward. And now we have this lovely rapport where when I walk up to her with the saddle in my hand and I have to step on the stool to put it on her back, she looks at me, she puts her head forward and she puts her ears forward and she just drops her head a little bit, just kind of saying, like, yep, go ahead, you can do that, right? And it's by doing all those little baby steps to get there. And we got there quickly, but you had to start with the baby steps. It's that whole go slow to go fast.
Yep.
So did you buy her because you knew she would be a challenge and you just wanted to like get a because you didn't make it because you made it didn't make it sound like a horse I would want to buy.
No, I did the exact thing of what I said I was gonna do. You know, it's like it's like getting a oh God, people do this to me all the time. It's like people ask me what breed of dog they should get. I tell them what would be perfect for their lifestyle, and then they go do the opposite. Oh
Yeah.
my God, I could strangle them.
Totally.
I could strangle them when they do that. So here I am talking to all my friends, going, when Tara and Ringo died, I was traumatized and I didn't want to buy a puppy, but I really wanted to spend their last years devoting all my attention to them. So I didn't get a puppy. It's bad family planning, right? So when Roger was really truly ready to be retired, like the last year of his life, I could tell he didn't want to do stuff anymore. He just wanted to be loved on. Great. Now I'm going to work on my family planning. I'm not going to wait for him to pass before I get a horse. So I'd been searching. And I told all my friends what I'm going to get is this perfect husband safe horse. He's already trained. No matter how busy I get, I can just get on him and go. That's just what I need. I'm too busy to train a horse right now. And when I get bored of that, because it's not going to be a training challenge, I'll just give it to my husband. That can be his trail riding horse. And then I'll get my next horse, right? This is my good family planning plan. So I go out and I ride all the horses that fit that category, right? I think I test rode like 6 or 7 horses. It just, there was no spark. It was like dating. It was like none of this. Like, I was like,
No
he's perfect
connection.
on paper, right? He's perfect on paper, but it doesn't give me the tingles. Like, I'm not. I know. I was
That's
like, I'm
perfect.
bored. I don't go home thinking about him. I'm like, I just,
Yes.
it doesn't do it for me, and I don't know why. And I thought I was going to get a gelding, and I kept looking at horses online, and I for some reason I was just really drawn to mares. And I've never been drawn to mares. I've never been a person who enjoyed riding mares. I was always a gelding person, but I kept looking, and the first Brina was the only mare that I actually test rode. But I just, there was a spark. I could see her.
Aw.
She was kind of grouchy. She was kind of like, there was no spark in her eyes. She looked at me like, what? Like, I don't give a shit whether you walk away or not. Like, you're giving me a peppermint, make my day. I don't care. And when I rode her, she kicked, she bucked. It was hard to steer, but there was
It
a
was love at
spark.
first sight. It was love at first sight.
It's terrible. Yeah, I went home and I couldn't
Didn't
stop
kick
thinking
me,
about her.
but
Oh my
Yeah,
God, it's
I
so
just
funny.
I could feel. I was like, "There's something here." It's weird. It made no sense. But I went home. I kept thinking about her, and I couldn't wait to ride her again. And I went back up and I rode her again, and I was like, shit. I really like this horse. Like, this is the complete opposite of everything that I thought. And I thought about it for weeks and weeks. And then it just kind of got to a point where I was like, I can't stop thinking about her. Like, done. It's a done deal. I'm gonna
That's
take her
so
home.
funny. We're like
And
women love bad, like
a
bad,
fucked up
like,
situation.
yeah,
yeah,
I'm such a sucker. I'm such a
yeah.
sucker for that. I'm like, oh, it's broken. Let me fix it.
Let me fix it. Yep,
you know
that's it.
and a lot of her behavior issues, like now that I've really been uncovering so much of this, a lot of her behavior issues are physical issues. I mean, so interesting in the horse world. I think that there's so much focus on soundness, right? People focus so much on soundness in horses and a lot less on the relationship. um, so much of what everybody was telling me about her issues was behavior. They're like, oh, she's stubborn. She just doesn't like to work. She has a bad work ethic. Oh, you just got to warm her up. You need to work her more consistently. And when I brought her home and started working with her, within the first week, I was like, whoa, there's something way more serious going on. And I talked to her previous owner, I talked to her previous trainer, and everyone even had me convinced that it was behavioral. And I had to go to 3 different vets, and it turned out it was physical. She had a medial ligament holding one of her tendons in place that was completely torn.
Mm.
And they kept saying it was behavioral, which is really opposite of what so much is considered usual problem solving in the horse world, they focus so much on soundness, usually very rarely on behavior, but it ended up being a soundness issue. And now that I've worked her through that, the motivation and the enthusiasm to work is like almost overwhelming. Like, I do not have an engine problem. That horse has so much power and so much motivation that we're not cantering at this point. I can't even handle the canter. It's so much motivation. I'm like, we need to make sure we have brakes before we hit that much adrenaline and gas. Um, and in the dog world, I feel like it's the exact opposite. It's so much more about relationship. And, you taught me so much, Petra, about really being able to see soundness. Even those little teeny things can make a huge difference. Um, so many of the behavior cases that I see here, just at Wonder Dogs, so much of it I can be resolved through physical health. It's such a thing that people think is always a training or relationship issue, and so much of it can be soundness. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, well, there's a big push, really big push. There was always some emphasis on it, like at Fenzi, but there's like
Hmm.
a huge push in that direction now, probably because
Hmm.
Denise has had her dog has had some health issues, right?
Hmm.
Soundness issues. So then that becomes a thing, and then she's really public about it. So now, which is good, because there's, I think, this really growing trend and emphasis on the physical aspect of it. I always found like the biggest challenge I had with the physical stuff is, I come from an athletic background, so
Yeah.
it makes sense to
To
me,
you. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But 99% of dog trainers, zero physical, zero
Yep.
sport, whatever background. So that's not even on their radar. And
Yeah.
when I would try to explain to them, like, it's be proactive, like it helps your dog, and on, never worked, never
Mm.
resonated. I used to like
Mm.
do surveys, like everything. The only time it resonated, and resonated, really resonated, was when their dog was hurt.
Mm.
Then
Hmm.
they understood, and
Hmm.
then they were on board for life. Like every dog
Mm.
after that, like all in, get it, understand it now, whatever. But boy, and I still think to a certain extent, it is a huge challenge to really get people to understand that it is important, that it is part of it, that it matters, and
Yay.
that it how what an impact it has on the dog's ability to learn and work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 1000%. It's such a huge cultural shift that we still need to see in the dog world, um, because they can listen to you saying it, but there's a million other people in their world saying the exact opposite, probably also including their vet 9 times out of 10. I
Hmm.
can't tell you how many times that I took Tara to her GP saying, oh, she's doing this weird thing with her shoulder. And I would make him come out into the parking lot and watch her do side passes, and he can't see it. Versus if
Hmm.
if I had you watch it, you'd be like, oh, yeah, I totally see that. Right. Like, it takes a level of subtlety and eye training to see the subtleties versus like a dead lame limping thing, right? But
Yeah.
um there was even a behavior case that I saw, oh, it was probably a month ago now, because she has started in our reactive dog program now. But there's literally a veterinarian about an hour away from us that brought her dog to me because her coworker, the other veterinarian, had brought her dog to me, and her dog was like, had all these issues, the separation anxiety, this extreme phobias, all of these issues. And yes, he had issues, but I said, I feel like there could be pain complicating this. And I, even in my office, I didn't see anything that, and I've
Hmm.
got a well trained eye now with all my experience with Tara and Roger. And I didn't see anything, but I said, I just have this feeling that there could also be something going on. There was a sudden onset, which was a big red flag for me of his behavioral issues. And I said, go home. Here's these desensitization games that I want you to play, but I want you to put him on some pain meds for just 10 days and let's see what happens. And literally in 3 days, she sent me an email and said, you gave me my dog back.
Mm.
And she was a vet, she does this all
Oh, I
day
know.
every day, and so I think that so much of dog training is relationship focused, but I wish that there was a better balance in the dog world. I wish there was a better balance of physical health, and in the horse world I wish there was a better balance on relationship health that's not based on punishment.
I think
you
the
know
big problem is the dogs can't say it and people
yeah,
can't see it. And our
yeah.
dogs, like, their pain tolerance is so high
Mm-hmm.
that they'll work
We'll
and
do it.
keep working even when, like, I would see
Tara's
it
the
all the
same way.
time.
Yeah.
Like agility, I'd sit there, I'll be like, I can't even watch. Sometimes I'm watching an obedience show, I'm like, oh my God, I can't even watch. Like,
Mm.
but people don't see it. And I have had like similar situation. Like I've had people come, like they were coming from all over and they've gone to multiple vets, not throwing shade on vets. They're not
No,
trained to
yeah.
notice certain
Yeah.
things, right? And
Mhm.
they're like, I just had this feeling, but I don't, like they didn't catch it. Like, so I do think like rehab, people that do rehab, that's growing. But even then, sometimes if they're
Yeah.
not seeing performance dogs, right? Because what our
Yes, that's
dogs
different.
do is very different and
The pet
it's
dogs.
very specialized.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And, I would say the same cultural issue happens in the horse world. I honestly am the same way about a lot of competitive venues with horses. I can't watch because I see the stress and the pain in their faces.
Hmm.
Their bodies are beautiful, their movements are beautiful, but I can't see past the tension in the face, the pinned ears, the wrinkled noses, the wrinkled eyes, the swishing tails. Those are stress signals, and culturally, speaking as part of that culture, raised in that culture, we are not raised to see those things as stress, pain, discomfort, fear, or anxiety. We're just taught like, oh, he's just working hard. Or oh, he's grouchy. You hear grouchy and stubborn and dominant like thrown around in the horse world the way that we used to hear it all the time in the in the dog world before there was like a huge change to positive reinforcement. It's so interesting in that cultural way. People just they don't see it because they're not taught to culturally. You know, uh, it's it's just so interesting in the at least thankfully it's growing in the horse world. People are paying more attention and even publicly and in the media. I think people are starting to pay attention thanks to some of the stuff that was happening in the Olympics. But um, it's it's changing, but it's a cultural challenge because whereas specialized people like us, we would see those things, but there's still lots of other voices around still saying the same old things.
Yeah. I think it still happens in dogs too,
Yeah,
where
yeah.
um people don't think of that as like a possible thing.
Hmm.
So that's good. People think about that. It plays a role. It's a factor. It's a
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Well, Jen, this was so good. Thank you
So
so much
good.
for doing this. It's
Yay, this
so
was really
good.
fun.
And I'm
Loved listening to
super
you.
excited to follow Brina's journey because I've seen her. Why is she sleeping on a bed?
That's a really good question. How did that start? Yeah, she has a big, um, like right now it's a queen size, but she did have a king. It just got dirty and I had to start over. But she has a big queen foam size mattress that I got for free off of Facebook Marketplace. And she was, she I had thought about this with Roger when he at one point of wanting to really like give him a softer place to lay down, because as a senior horse, you know, he lays down and curls up to sleep and he would get sores on his hocks
Mm.
because the skin there is really thin, and you can put like 8 to 10 inches of shavings in their bed to get them to lay down, but it wasn't always supportive enough, and so I had to put um boots on his hocks to protect him when he was laying down. And with Brina, I was kind of wondering the same thing. Like, I wonder if I can make her more comfortable, because she had some hock sores when I first bought her. And so, you know, I was giving her lots of shavings, and I stumbled upon this website called Pasture Puffs, and it's a place that makes literally dog beds for horses. They're really fancy, and they
Oh.
do like waterproof covers and all of those sorts of things. And it actually, instead of it just being a nice thing, they were putting it as a solution for people who have allergies and can't do tons of shavings or hay as bedding for their horses, and, you know, less cleanup and all that sort of stuff. But the more I thought about it, the more I was like, we don't expect our dogs to sleep the same place that they go to the bathroom. And in horses, we do that. We're like, here's the shavings. This is where you go to the bathroom. This is also where you sleep. And I thought, that's disgusting. Like, why would we do this? It's just such a cultural thing that they do. So I got her a mattress pad, just like a little 3-inch one, to see what would happen. I threw it down. I put a couple of treats on it. That's all I did. And literally, I have cameras in her stall. I checked her camera that very first night, and she had curled up and slept on it. She
Oh my
immediately
God,
said,
that's so funny.
"This is cozy. This is great. I love this. It's not also my toilet," right? I just put it on like you would with a dog. I put it next to her food on the far end of her stall. So one's a potty area, one's a sleeping eating area. She immediately took to it and slept on it. And I literally cried.
We had a couple of tech issues with this episode. So at the end, people just kind of dropped out. So Lori and I want to thank Jenn so much for taking time out of her schedule and giving us such an fun, amazing insight into not just training dogs, but training horses. I know Lori and I really enjoyed it, and we hope you did too. And as always, we thank all of you for listening. Bye bye.